see the different articles that they're looking into. Basically, there is in award criteria 3, they are referring to articles 10, 11, and 12 of the LIFE regulations, and these are the articles. So you can, if you're rewatching this webinar, you can stop here and you can look into it or open the link, and under the link you will find the entire LIFE regulation. And if you can refer to different phrases in this text, it is certainly good. Award criteria 5 is basically the fit to EU policy. Here you need to basically go through how your project contributes to different directives and regulations from the European Union, basically to put it into a larger strategical context. It is an advantage if you can show that your project is contributing to the development of larger scale solutions or solutions in neighboring or other sectors. The most important thing, if you look into the award criteria, the different questions that the evaluator will look into, is that you're engaging policymakers in one or another way, either on the local level or national level, to keep the people that actually have some decision power inside a project in one or another way, and that you're contributing to the different regulations and directives. Again, I think it's important to be creative. You could perhaps see if you're proposing that your project will help a specific sector to grow, you could say that it's likely that your project will contribute to creating jobs in all of Europe. You know that that's a strong priority of the European Commission at the moment. So job creations in a larger scale could be something that you could try to have as a goal. It will strengthen the project. Award criteria 7 is quite split, I would say. It's called transnational green procurement and uptake. So the uptake of green procurement and transnational projects. This is actually, you need to keep, first of all, this criteria is that there is no minimal score. Even if your project is not promoting transnationality and green procurement, you will be able to have your project approved in any case. But nevertheless, this is again a good chance to earn some extra points, because when it comes to the area of transnationality, this does not need to be too complex. It is explicitly written that you can get a full score in this if you're bringing in beneficiaries from other countries, as long as you can show that they're contributing to the solution of the problem that you're addressing in your project, and as long as that they are carrying out some actions abroad as well. So bring on an international partner if it's possible. Make sure that this partner carries out some actions that are relevant. It could be, for example, some sort of experimental monitoring, some tests that only this partner can do, or some dissemination actions to teach similar organizations in that country about your project. And you must make sure that this partner has a clear or an obvious competence in the field that you're carrying out your project within. Green procurement can seem complicated to many. It's mainly because many of us do not really know what green procurement means. But it means basically to procure goods, services, works that somehow imply a reduced environmental impact. You need to address, or you need to keep in mind, a life cycle perspective of the goods or services that you are taking on board. In some cases, this could be used to source local services, for example, because if you okay, mainly the green procurement standards are applying to public organizations that have to carry out public tender to when they're procuring some services or goods. And well, as most of you are probably aware, if, for example, Spanish organization is offering a very good deal, you are obliged to accept that deal, even if it will mean that the Spanish person probably drives all the way from Spain up to Lithuania to carry out the service that could have been carried out by a local subcontractor to basically much lower environmental costs, although the economic cost is not lower. It's quite tricky sometimes. At least we have experienced that in our projects when we are experimenting with these green procurements a bit. It can be tricky to both comply with the regular procurement rules and at the same time procure in a green way, because there might be someone, for example, more far away, or materials more far away that are significantly cheaper. But this is something that you have to wait, and there are quite good guidelines that you can refer to. We usually do that. It's the most simple way. We mean, if you think that it will be possible to fulfill the standards, you could say that we will procure our goods and services in accordance with, for example, the European Union's handbook on green procurement, or any internal routines that you might have in Lithuania or in your municipality on this. So rather than explaining what green procurement is and how you plan to do it, you can refer to a standard on how to do it. And perhaps you need to leave some space open. You can say, in the cases when it's possible, we will refer to the EU handbook on green public procurement, for example. Send me an email if you need a link to this. Otherwise, if you search on Google for EU handbook on green public procurement, you will find it there. And the recommendations that they set out are not unreasonable, I think, but it's of course up to every case to look into. As a conclusion about the first question of B3, as you probably realize, this is a very broad topic, and you have to structure it in a as reasonable way as possible. I think that every evaluator fears this part a bit because it comes a lot of information, but try to stick to the most relevant information and put that into your B3 first question form. And again, if you can use any figures, pictures, illustrations, the evaluator will welcome this. It will not be considered unserious or so. We will continue to socio-economic aspects. Just like in all of the different questions that you under all the B forms, actually, as you understand, there will be a lot of text, and it might not be too easy for the evaluator to so to speak absorb all the information in the text. So always keep it as simple as possible to him. And we usually do that by putting up bullet points. If you have been inside a proposal system, you can see that you can, at least to a certain extent, use formatting for the text, and you will be able to do bullet points. So it can be good to start each and every question with some bullet points. I will explain this and this and this, and after that, you go into the different sections. This might seem obvious, but it is not obvious to all, especially not if you write it for the first time, and when you don't realize the extent of it. But the socioeconomic factors can usually be split into some different areas that reflect the different target groups' needs and desires. Of course, jobs creation or jobs sustaining is very important. Again, one of the major priorities of the European Union. So if you can show that your project somehow provides some new jobs, for example, if we go back to the example with the dead fish in the lake, the municipality that wants to carry out that project would probably argue that they have a lot of fishermen living in their municipality, and if the fish are dead, the fishermen have no jobs. If they can create a better environment so that the fish are coming back and live, it will be possible to sustain these fishermen jobs. But it can also be well, some touristy area that is created. If you're establishing a wetland, you will most likely, or if the birds like it, they will usually, birds like to inhabit wetlands, and that will most certainly attract a lot of bird watchers. And then you will perhaps be able to create 1 or 2 jobs in tourism for guides, for example, for bird watchers in this area. It can be recreation and tourism as one socio-economic feature. If you are, for example, making sure that, well, we can take coast adaptation measures we spoke about before in NIDA. If you make sure that the beach is not eroding and disappearing within 50 years, you have a socioeconomic effect in the sense that you will be able to continue to attract tourists to your area. And then, of course, attractiveness and health. This goes especially for projects where you reduce the CO2 emissions or emissions of other unhealthy substances into air or into water in a specific area. This is also one section that you could look into. And again, keep this as scientific as possible. Don't hesitate to refer to different sources. I usually do so that I make it look like I put the name and the year, name of the author and the year to the source. And then in attachments, you're usually able to attach a little reference list. This could be quite useful to make it very credible, but it's also possible, if you have enough characters, of course, to put in the full name of your source into the text, so that you can argue again in an objective and relatively scientific way. It's usually scientists and professors and people from universities that are evaluating the proposals, and therefore they put lots of value into objective outline of the problem and so on. We have in many cases seen evaluations of proposals where the evaluator has not found it credible enough because the argumentation has not been sufficiently underbuilt by other studies and pilots and so on. So invest some time into getting a lot of material, or even carry out smaller analysis of your water, for example. If you're looking to improving water quality, then perhaps it's good to make a status quo investigation before you even start the project and put the results into the live application. And then the fourth question goes, efforts for reducing the project's carbon footprint. You, of course, should not highlight any negative impacts on the environment. And if you have any negative impacts on the environment, your project might not even be eligible for life funding. But this is where you should set out your, so to speak, carbon footprint mitigation or carbon mitigation strategies. And again, it's quite good to divide it into different categories. You will most certainly, and I've made some examples here that are quite common. It is, for example, the transports. When you're buying construction material, is there any way of procuring or getting the material, use a material that it's available locally, so that you don't have to transport it around half of Europe? And if you have to transport it, have you considered the life cycle cost of it in that case? It can be energy, perhaps the waste materials from the construction of your project can be used somewhere, for example, for local energy production. We said that if there's a district heating station that is fired on biofuels, for example, nearby, maybe you can sell your wood to them to make sure that it's utilized. Although maybe that's not a good example because they burn it. But in any case, I think you understand. Regarding mobility, this is something that everyone puts in, that you're trying to reduce the number of face-to-face seminars and try to use webinars instead. The same with meetings, although you should never underestimate the importance of holding physical meetings in order to simply facilitate communication within the project. It's of course always better if everyone knows each other well and meets each other on a regular basis. This is not usually a big problem since life projects tend to be relatively local. It is possible to meet face-to-face anyway. Regarding waste, this is also something that is usually brought up. Use as little paper as possible and so on. Use cloud services. This is something that will be appreciated. That is very easy to put in here. And then finally, again, if you can make a small illustration, for example, of the material and the waste flows, if this is possible, if you can make it very simple, it could be useful to attach to Form B3. We continue to B4, and then we are basically jumping back to the stakeholders involved and the main target audience. I've already explained the difference between those two and the necessity of, first of all, identifying and describing the different stakeholders and target audiences in a project like this. The most important groups are usually the ones that we have already been looking into in replication and transferability. What you need to do in this part is to, first of all, explain who they are and why they are relevant for the project, how can they contribute to the project, and what will they get from the project. I would say those are the most important things. It can be useful to, in order to illustrate why you want to take different measures for different organizations. I have done here just an example that you can see a small diagram that you could make something similar and put in as an attachment to motivate taking different actions towards different kinds of partners. So, for example, you would imagine that national authorities have a high decision-making power since they can influence legislation, and therefore the project should be focused on influencing them. Can they provide any inputs to the project? I don't know. It's very different from case to case. On the other hand, local authorities, they usually have a low decision-making power when it comes to, well, it's different from case to case, but if you look into legislation here for an example, they might both have low decision-making power because usually they get the orders from the top, basically, and they don't see the reason why they should take any own initiatives. It's of course different from countries to countries. Hopefully in Lithuania it works better than in Sweden. But it could also be so that they're not having sufficient interest and knowledge to carry out the different actions, and therefore they're not likely to act. So what the project could do is probably to encourage them to do things, transfer some experience to them, or offer to even carry out some of the actions that the local authorities should do on their own. Also, another actor that is usually active on the local area is private businesses. They usually have a very high knowledge, on the other hand, and a high interest, but well, decision-making power is maybe not the right word, but I mean they are of course commercial actors and ready to act if someone gives them the incentives. Maybe they can somehow be involved in the project and along with the project develop incentives to carry out the specified action. So some sort of very simple figure like this could help the evaluator understand how you are valuing different kinds of partners and what you think that you can contribute to them and how they can contribute to your project. Again, categorize as much as possible and then explain the different categories. How can authorities help? How can the broad public and how can the citizens help the project? How will you help them, and so on. Then one part that is extremely important is the risk management. It is important in all EU-funded programs for a good reason. In this section, you need to outline all possible internal and external events that could have impact or at least mainly negative impact on the project, as well as some sort of strategy for how these different risks will be mitigated. I have tried to make a little stepwise guide. First of all, like always, divide into risk categories. The most common risks that every project has is, first of all, legal, of course. It can be both refusal of permits that you expect to get. It can be delays because sometimes authorities take longer time than they are supposed to. It can be that you're carrying out an environmental impact assessment or strategical impact assessment, and you find that, or this EIA finds that the project is not feasible to carry out. Therefore, a good mitigation strategy to these risks would be to carry out as much of the work as early as possible. Sometimes maybe some of the permits you can get or have on the hand already before you're submitting the proposal, or that you are expecting them to be ready before the start of the project in July 2018. Be very thorough about these risks, because this is something that the evaluators are looking very carefully upon. In some cases, some projects bring on regional authorities in the project. Actually, the authorities that are like handling the permit procedure, and in some way this is good, because then you are sure that you have the support of this regional authority or whatever it might be. But on the other hand, it can look a bit almost corrupt to have the organization on board that is supposed to actually approve the permit at some point. So if you keep such organization on board, express this, or motivate their role in the project in a very thorough way. There are also technical environmental risks. For example, you could call it almost an innovation risk. For example, that the prototype does not work, or that you're installing a coast adaptation best practice on some place and it actually just falls apart and disappears. It doesn't work at all. What are you doing in that case? So for example, then one mitigation, if you apply ecosystem-based coastal adaptation measures on one place and they fail to work, maybe your mitigation strategy will be to use conventional solutions in some way. This might not be so good for the environment, but at least it's a mitigation strategy. And it should also be, of course, how you're managing it before, for example, doing research that you're testing it perhaps in large scale and then extend it in the project, and so on and so on. Of course, also financial and process issues of the project is important. For example, that one financial contributor pulls out, you don't get the funding that you were expecting, or one of the partners go bankrupt, or there is a major delay in the project because one of the partners does not deliver the results or the reports this organization should do. What kind of mitigation measures have you included into the project to make this less likely or to manage the problem when it comes? So, for example, a good management structure with one decision-making organ is quite important. So, for example, if you have a partner that fails, this organ will be able to take a decision on whether or not to exclude them from the project, for example, or to punish them in some way, if it's possible within the frames of the project. Usually punishments are tricky and perhaps not even desirable. Second, motivate your time planning. This is something that the evaluators are looking into too when it comes to the risk management. Is your timetable realistic, and is it coherent with expected results? And then they will look into your deliverables and milestones. It could be worth mentioning your deliverables and milestones already in this risk analysis, at least briefly. Then 3, so explain what you have done. This could also be part of the pre-operational context, but you need to explain at some point somewhere, and it would perhaps suit better here, what you have done to mitigate risks before the project started. For example, having consultations with local NGOs that might become a problem or difficulty in the project, or having a dialogue at least with authorities about the permits that you need to carry out the project, so that you have at least relatively green light to carry out the project, that you will not start up the project and have problems right away. And then you outline the different contingent measures, the risk mitigation strategies also in text. Again, if you would like to create a comparative overview of the different risks or all the risks that you have identified, a table, a very, very simple table that you attach as an attachment could be quite useful. And this is just an example how we usually do it. I think it's quite straightforward and quite universal. So first of all, you describe the possible barrier, for example, a delay in permit procedures. You explain what actions, which is A, B, C, D, or E actions that this delay might give impact on. The risk, like the severity, how bad this barrier would impact the project if it occurs. And then, of course, the probability for the risk or the barrier to occur. And then you show the weighted impact of this risk, which would be the risk multiplied with the probability. And then you get an impact for each of the different barriers, and you will be able to see which of them is more severe, which is more serious. And then you also have a way to assort them in the table as well as in the text. And in the text, you explain what contingent measures you take to mitigate the risks. I hope this is useful, but I emphasize that this kind of table is just optional, but it could help an evaluator to well, get a faster and better understanding of the different risks and how they how serious they are compared to each other. And the most critical risks, of course, you can evaluate as with a low impact, and then they will not matter perhaps too much, at least in evaluation. As the important thing is to show that you are thinking about all the different parts, that you keep them in mind at least. That's what the evaluator wants to see. And then finally, B6 is the continuation or the valorization and the long-term sustainability of the project results after the project has ended. And this might, I always get a bit of stomach ache when I see this, because I feel I don't really want to write it, because you have to even fantasize, or what will happen in 5 years. No one knows really, to be honest. But it is quite straightforward when you look into the different questions that are covered by B6. And they also don't require too many characters to be written. It's only a maximum of 5,000, and it's 3 questions. So the first question is, which actions will have to be carried out or continued after the end of the project? And then it says that please list such project actions indicating the reference and title. So these do not need to, obviously the equipment or the technology that you have installed, it's a clear advantage if this this technology stands on its place and continues to work, as well as the management of the action area. For example, if you're establishing wetlands somewhere, it's important that there is a management and an administration to take care of this wetland in the future. Usually this will be carried out by a municipality or similar. At this point, you don't even need to have this confirmed, to be honest. You take what's most likely. It's also, of course, important if you have a university on board your project. It would be good if this university continues doing monitoring and perhaps some research after the end of the project. Be quite specific in this case, indicate the locations, the duration that you think that the measures will continue, and the type of actions that are involved. Quite straightforward after all. If you put all this together, it's likely that you get a quite credible strategy and action plan on the maintenance, and even perhaps development of the actions that you have already carried out in the project. And then the next question is, how will this be achieved? Which resources will be necessary to carry out these actions? This is quite a simple question. They want to know, when we stop financing your project, who will pay? And how much will they pay? In many of the projects that we carry out, it is possible to get some sort of income after. For example, if you create the wetlands with a bird watching site, maybe you can even charge some entrance after the end of the project. And in this case, you could say that the income received from the entrance fees will be used to finance the wetlands further, or with municipal contributions, or even EU funding in any other way. So this question basically wants you to answer who will pay. The last question is a bit longer. To what extent will the results and lessons of the project be actively disseminated after the end of the project to those persons and or organizations that could best make use of them? And here they want you to include a list of the different organizations that you think, the different target groups. And this is to make sure that also after the end of the project, the results are continued to be disseminated, that the study visits continue, for example, that other organizations have the opportunity to come there. And you need to somehow indicate some realistic measures for making this happen. This could be, for example, to approach other than ongoing LIFE projects or similar EU-funded projects, and this tell them about the lessons learned. This could be one thing. You're not really providing any promises at this point, except, of course, for example, keeping the project website live for 5 years. That's a promise. But none of this will be covered in the grant agreement, which is quite important to remember. So first of all, start with a short introduction, then make a list of every organization and person that you think might be interested in your project by the end of the project. And then explain relatively briefly what you want to do. For example, you want to continue update the project websites for another 5 or 10 years after the project is finished, what is most realistic. You will distribute the layman's reports, which is a popular version of the final report. What have you done? A very short, it's a brochure basically that tells more about the project. Perhaps you will continue distributing this at your office for another 5 years after the project is finished. You could still arrange some seminars. It's quite likely if you have university partners that they have not had time to publish their scientific articles. So another 2 scientific articles will come after the end of the project. Also, it's quite likely that you're attending a few conferences every year. And since you already have the roll-ups and all the equipment, it could be also after the end of the project be nice to arrange, since you usually get free conference entrance, or to some conferences at least you can get in for free as a speaker. You can bring your roll-up and have a little stand at this conference that you like to visit also after the end of the project. So even if your trip is not paid to the conference, maybe you have a new EU-funded project at that point that can finance that, but still you will use the roll-up and the material at the conference after the end of the project. Does not need to be more complicated than this. But still invest some thinking, but this is not it's important for the evaluation, but it's not the hardest part to write in the project or in the proposal. Let's see. I think actually that we are coming to the end of the B forms. Feel free to send questions. I know this is quite general. And if you have any more specific questions, let's see if I can answer them. Just go crazy with the questions function. And we will jump over to the A forms. I'm sure that many of you have already had a look on these. They're quite straightforward, I would say. You fill out contact information and similar. But there are, however, a few things that should be noted in this. First of all, I think maybe I'm an uncreative person, but I think it's very tricky to get a nice title that is relatively short, clear, and easy to read. Because this title is something that will haunt you throughout the project if it's approved. So even if it sounds ridiculous, when you're tired in the afternoons after writing your application, or in the evenings or in the nights, think a little bit about this this title, because it's really much nicer to have a nice title if the project is approved. Also, the project acronym is something that is used very widely. In the application guide, it says that the project acronym must begin with life. I think that's the case in earlier years. In the application system, it says that the project acronym must contain life. So life does not necessarily have to be the first word of the acronym, but then you could have something like life on the beach or whatever. Something that fits well to the topic of your project. But this also requires some fantasy. Sometimes it's good to take use of other colleagues that are not working with this at all and have a little coffee brainstorming session over acronyms. The earliest start date of a project is 1st of July 2018. Consider project duration of 3 to 5 years and include lots of margins for possible delays. This is also important for the evaluation when they're looking into whether your timetable is realistic or not. There is a section in Form A1 where you indicate the countries and regions in which your project will be carried out. be sure to indicate all the regions, because this, if you look into different countries, this gives access to national allocations. For example, if I, as a Swedish partner, would like to apply within environment now, knowing that our national allocation is almost out within environment, and I'm approaching a Lithuanian partner, if I indicate in Form A1 that I have a Lithuania on board my project, this means that I get access to your national allocations too, and I have a far better chance to be approved financing. But it's also important for the evaluator to see that you have a large geographical, not large, but at least a relatively large geographical spread on your project or impact. Well, then for coordinating associated beneficiaries and co-financiers, by obvious reasons, you need to indicate very much the similar information. Make sure to that you're having a available contact person. It could be someone who works quite far down in your hierarchy, whereas the legal representative is the CEO or the person authorized to sign papers, basically. And it's important that it is actually this person that is indicated under legal representative. You need to make a brief description of the activities and experiences of your organizations. The most important thing is to show that you have the necessary experience and the capacity to carry out the activities that you're promising to carry out in the project. There is also a form of like half participation called affiliated partners. This could be, for example, if you are a company and you have a daughter company that will also carry out some tasks in the project, but that do not have any major role in the project. In this case, you should include information like contact information, as well as how this affiliated partner is complying with the conditions and criteria, which are explained in the application guide on page 12. This only applies to private partners. Public partners cannot have affiliated partners on board. For co-financiers, there is an additional option to indicate whether the co-financing is confirmed yet or not confirmed, and include some comments on that. For example, I know that you are provided with some extra financing from the Lithuanian government to carry out the LIFE project. They would then become the co-financier. And as I understand, you already got the co-financing decision, so then you would indicate confirmed and you don't need to include any comments. But me, on the other hand, having to deal with the Ministry of Maritime Affairs in Sweden, who can never decide anything until ever, I have to probably by September 12 write not confirmed and try to explain the situation that we are promised a decision in October or similar. When you have filled out all the information, press save, and then there is a almost hidden function called generate declaration. You will get a PDF form that you print, and then you let the legal representative sign this, and you need to upload this before you submit the application. If you are part of a large organization and the person or the authorized legal person is hard to get in touch with, this is perhaps something that you should do quite soon to make sure that you get this signature. It's absolutely necessary to submit the application. And also, I mean, the person could be on holiday, so make sure that you have this signature and that you have time to upload this declaration. And this goes for both coordinating and associated beneficiaries. Keep in mind. This is administrative forms A to 6, quite simple. I have, however, I wanted to, however, emphasize a bit more on form A7, which is equally important and quite often overlooked because it comes so late in the process that you feel that don't really need to invest too much time in this. It's ridiculous. 3 questions, very important for the evaluator. 1, have you or any of your associated beneficiaries already benefited from previous life co-financing? When you ask people this question, they usually say no, but it's worth going into Life's project database. There's a link, it's available on Life's page, and then you can simply search for the partner in all of the approved projects in Life. If you realize that one of your partners has been participating in the project, then you use the Life project identification code, and you include it in this field and explain very briefly what they were doing in the project. Have you or any of the associated partners submitted any actions related directly or indirectly to this project to other European funding programs? To whom, when, and with what results? So if any of the organizations are running parallel projects, which has financing in one or another way from the European Union, or also include the regional development funds that are available, that can sometimes seem like they are local funding, you need to indicate this here. The important thing here is to make sure that that there is no double financing, that, for example, that you get 60% from the Life program and 40% from the regional development funds for the same activities. Of course, you will be able to get away with this at this stage. They will not look into it in detail for the evaluation of your proposal, or even during the final payment, or basically when you do payment requests. But if you would get a audit on your project at some point, you would have to pay back lots of money, as well as probably pay a punishment for cheating. So there is a risk, and you should make sure that double financing does not occur. For those activities which fall within the eligibility criteria for financing through other European Union funding programs, please explain in full detail why you consider that those actions are better suited to financing through Life and are therefore included in the current project. Again, keep the technical readiness levels in mind. This is the best way of differentiate your project from other programs, or which makes it more. It's the best way of motivating why your project is fit for Life rather than other projects or other programs. So Life, as you know, is focused on environment and technology development, and finances project at a relatively high technology readiness level. If you are at the lower technology readiness level, probably your project is more fit for Horizon 2020. Not always, but usually this is the case. Horizon 2020 is quite, in the different calls, they are explicit on which TRL level that they are looking for. If you have a higher TRL level, usually COSME, which is for small, medium-sized enterprises, is a better option. Interreg are different. They're not, they're not really developing technology or in a large extent. They have very many different focus areas. I would say that their projects are usually targeting information and competence exchange between different countries and especially public authorities. CEF, Connecting Europe Facility, the old TNT program, has a very similar technology readiness levels of Life, but is more focused on transport infrastructure. So if you're doing a project that is somehow connected to transport, you should maybe consider whether CEF would have been a better alternative or not. Usually you could motivate that CEF is very much entirely focused on the core networks of the European Union and urban nodes. And if you're located outside the core network or an urban node, it will not be possible to get CEF funding. And there's also a lot of other alternatives or another option. conditions in Ceph that might be hard to fulfill. So this could be a guidance at least to some of the other most common programs, but you have to make a quite thorough analysis of this. And this is also something that we can partly help you with if we are doing some technical consultations together. We have quite a good overview of the different programs, I would say. And also then, of course, if you're resubmitting your application, if you submitted last year or the year before that, you need to write down your life project identification number and write the short explanation what happened. Usually it was not approved, and then you will need to explain very briefly what you have improved to make it approved. To approve the proposal this year instead, you have to change something. It's usually not a good idea to submit the exactly same proposal 2 years in a row. Good. I think we are reaching the end, and we'll soon take up the questions. But I want to connect back to what we said in the first webinar in the beginning, that when you're writing your application, in particular the B forms, always keep the guides for applicants nearby, and especially the evaluation guide. In the evaluation guide, on pages 19 forwards, you find all the award criteria. This is what your evaluator will use when he looks into your application. So you must make sure that you have answered as many as possible of those questions, because this will really be what he's holding next to him when he's looking into your evaluation. So please keep this in mind. And I've tried to connect just for you to if we look into the subprogram environment, if you look into the questions under award criteria 1, technical coherence and quality, you can see that they will, if you look into the questions, they will look for information in many of the different forms. In the A forms, which is the partner descriptions, what are the different partners contributing into the partnership to show that it's a strong consortium. It will be B1 is the environmental project, the environmental problem and the character of the project sufficiently described. It will be the logical link between objective, results, actions, and so on, as well as synergies and EU added value. When it comes to award criteria 2, financial coherence and quality, it's mainly the F forms that matter. Make sure to have your F forms in a good condition to get a good evaluation score. For the EU added value number 3, it's mainly B1 and B3 that are important. This is where you explain how your project fits to the LIFE regulation and to the LIFE program thematic priorities or topics. The contribution to the project topics, this only goes for the environment program, but this will be explained in B2 and B3 again, and so on. So the conclusion by looking at this is that B3 is the forms where you need to focus if you want a lot of points, yet B1 and B2 are perhaps the most important parts to make sure that you're like passing the minimum score everywhere, as well as keeping track on your F forms, of course. So use this to make a good strategy for your project. It will benefit you in the end, even if it's a lot of boring questions, a lot of strange words. It really will benefit you to invest some time into really understand what they are trying to say. Good. We have reached the end of this, and I will start to try to answer the questions. I see we have 3 of them. If you have more questions, we have 12 minutes to answer them, so feel free to submit Okay. I will first read the question and then I will try to answer it. If I cannot answer, I will get back to you afterwards. So Laura has a question. If the environment project idea is still in technology readiness 3, should we start the life project with level 3 to 4 as preparatory actions and concentrate mainly at levels 5 to 6 in implementation actions? We can go back and look at the technology levels. I have, well, if you think it's feasible or reasonable to carry out your actions, I would like, I mean, how do I think? I think that preparatory actions should be very limited. You're encouraged to have very small preparatory actions. And it's not likely during the preparatory stage, which should be maybe maximum 6 months, to bring a technology from level 3 up to level 5 to start implementation sections from there. I would say that you should maybe look into other programs in this case. At least if I was the evaluator, I would not let this pass. Or you should develop your ideas in-house and then motivate at your own technology readiness level 5 or 6 next summer and then apply next year instead. I'm not sure that without knowing the detailed circumstances that your project is fit for life. But you will have an opportunity for technical consultation. If you want to discuss it more in detail, we can look into it. Sometimes you can motivate things with beautiful words too. But otherwise, maybe look into another program, Horizon 2020 or perhaps Interreg. Mindogas has a question. If project has positive overall impact on CO2 flows, should that be described in B1, climate impact, or B3, minimization of footprint? This should be described in B1, climate impact. B3 is mainly how your project is minimizing the impact on the environment, the project itself, your activities, like internal activities, for example. So B1, if it has a more general or overall positive impact on climate, then B1 for sure. And B3 is more your internal measures to minimize your carbon footprint when you're carrying out the project. Then Vitas, when we talk or refer to any figures, it's usually statistics or surveys from the past. New jobs, growth, new EU value is something for the future forecasting. Can we make our own predictions, maybe in line with the national or EU targets? Does any figure should be referred to source? Well, yes, of course. In order to make objectives and mainly results, expected results for the project, you will have to make predictions. And if these predictions are in line with the national or EU targets, this is just better. In this case, you should definitely refer to figures or to documents, regulations, or studies, for example, in any case. So yes, forecasts are welcome, and when you describe the expected results of the project, I would say that it's good if you can refer back to actual statistics from the past of course, again, to create a credible argumentation. You say that we have been growing this and this much the last 10 years. And with this solution that we're developing in the LIFE project, we believe that we'll get a boost, and we will even develop even more, another 10%, for example, and this will help us reach national EU targets. Yes, some optimism really doesn't hurt, I think, in this. I hope that answers your question. Otherwise, send me an email afterwards. So, do we have any more questions? I see answers coming in.
While we are waiting for other questions, I'd like to encourage everybody to evaluate our webinar by using the tab Polls, where you can say whether this webinar has helped you for your preparation of your application.
Please do.
And I'd like also to advertise our future events, if I may, Henrik.
Yes, please do. Please do.
And so we are having a seminar tomorrow. I will try to share its invitation. I hope you can see it. So those who are in Vilnius tomorrow, please come to our seminar tomorrow. That starts at 9 in Best Western Hotel in Konstitucijos Prospektas. And please bring the draft of your application to that seminar. We'd like to make it as a writers' workshop where you can practically start, because you continue writing your application with the help of expert Mikko Tiira from Finland. And also, we as Life Capacity Building Project have a possibility to provide the individual technical consultations to the applicants from Lithuania. So please come. So please, those who are willing to receive the consultations, contact us at our email address info@lifeprojekte.lt. And Henrik Toremek, who was giving the webinar today, he is also among the experts who could provide the further technical consultations, individual consultations to every applicant. So please contact us in case you are willing to get further consultations on some requirements of the LIFE regulation, or some explanation of the guidance, or you want the expert to go deeper to the topic of your application so that he can look at your application and explain in which way you could better explain something or similar questions.
Exactly. Yeah, as I've continued repeating throughout those webinars, it's much easier if we can have a more or less general view on things. If you can look into a specific project and a specific problem, it's easier to give feedback, surely. So yeah, I also welcome anyone who is interested in technical consultations. Me or my colleagues will take good care of you. And of course, try to go on this seminar. It sounds, even if I can't really read it too well, I think it's very useful to go to any opportunity to exchange ideas and also speak with other applicants. It really helps to, well, get some courage in this terrible application process.
And I encourage you to connect to eProposal and really start writing practically your application. It's only 1 month left till the deadline, so please don't wait anymore. And we are always available for your help. If you have any questions, you don't hesitate to contact me directly. Everybody knows my email. So please contact me if you have any questions related to LIFE. Also, we have translated guidelines to Lithuanian language, and we have uploaded it to our website last month. So please, you can find the guidelines in Lithuanian if you want some more explanation. So if you want to understand it better, you can look at it.
That's luxurious. good initiative.
So, do we have any more questions? If not,
Doesn't seem so. In any case, in the chat, I've left my email address and phone number. If something pops up, call and we can see what we can do. Or basically go through the technical consultations. And my recommendation is don't wait too long. Try to manage the problem as fast as possible. Then it's easier to fix and make better.
so we wish. We have questions.
Yes, Mindergos. That's the performance indicators worksheet has to be filled out and added. If I don't remember wrong, it's under Form B3.
Okay, thank you, Henrik, very much for the webinars. And thanks everybody for watching us and being active during the webinar.
Yeah, thank you very much for all the questions. It has been a pleasure from my side. Very interesting. And I hope I get this chance again sometime in the future, maybe next year. And as I said from the beginning, submit your applications no matter what. You will always get very good feedback, which will help you prepare even better proposal until next year.
Good luck. Bye.
Yes.